see. Let's see if it's streaming.
Please stand by where I'm sitting.
Let me see if it's... I pressed all the right buttons. Oh, I think it is. I think it's streaming.
Yeah, it is. I can hear it. I hear it on my end. And probably the rest of the nation can hear it too.
Nice. Hey everyone, we're starting messed up. I'm trying to see if it's streaming on YouTube because it's not showing on my end. Oh wait, it may be.
I
think you can see it on YouTube.
I see your little I see the little icon with the microphone on it. Yeah, that's why I'm trying to be entertaining right now because I'm thinking that people are probably hearing me.
See, I don't see anything. That's why I put the icon up in case things were messing up and we weren't seeing it.
Okay.
Because it's not saying.
It's on a delay, so I just clicked it.
Oh yeah, it is. It is streaming. Ooh, all right. So what's going on, everyone? This is the voice you're hearing right now, the advocate of Wordz. I'm about to show all of our beautiful faces and who is involved right now in this stream. Let's see if this shows up. It should. And there I go. Yay! So what's going on, everyone? I'm Advocate of Wordz. We're trying something out new over here, trying to do a live stream. I've always told people I've been real fortunate that I know a bunch of great artists, and I always have interesting conversations with them about their process, where they're at in their career, what they're doing, and that's so much that goes so much into how much I've learned through experience and the sharing of other people's experience. So today we have with me from El Grito de Poetas and the founder of the Climate Ivy Project, we have True. What's going on, True?
Hey, darling. How's everybody doing?
We also have, if you're familiar with the poetry scene, we have who we affectionately call the professor, coming all the way out from New Jersey, Mr. Rich Villar. What's going on, Rich?
Yeah. Reporting live from the cave. What's the deal?
And we also have the multi-talented, and you're going to find out everything that she's involved in. She's like a jack of all trades. I respect that because I do that so much too. I love it. I can't get enough of the arts. From the Lower East Side, we have Gabriel Don. What's going on, Gabriel?
Hi. Well, is that me?
Yes.
I see Rich on the...
Yes. So when we talk, that's what's going to happen. You're going to see the faces pop up. And I think because, Gabrielle, you don't have a mic, it may be a little slow for your face to pop up. But we can hear you when you're talking. So, so we're going to talk about writing, poetry, performance, and the process of all of that. We may be joined later on by LaTanya Devon, who said she was going to show up. I think she's having some trouble logging in, but when she does, we'll see her and it'll come up. So a couple of things I do want to plug too that are time sensitive is this Friday there are 2 poetry shows that are going on, and we actually have individuals from both poetry shows who are here. So we have I Babble in the Bronx. True is going to feature. And I believe she's doing some new content, or at least it's new to the stage. And this will be her last feature of the year for 2015. And on Friday as well at the New Eureka Poets Cafe, we have the Army of Lit Angels that are the students from La Sopa, which Mr. Rich Villar has taught. So also, if you're watching this from YouTube, whether you're watching this live or after it's been recorded, in the description link I have, in the description I have links to each of their websites and what they're doing. Also, I hope it's okay, Gabrielle, I have a link to your Facebook.
Yeah,
is that cool?
Of course.
All right, awesome.
I need to get my website.
So, first things first, I would like to start with this. Why poetry? I know that may sound like a really broad question, but I always find it very interesting to see where people started and why they started writing. So, on my screen, I have True is right next to me, so we're going to say that True goes first. Wait, I think she froze. True, are you there? Nope. I got a text from her right now saying something's wrong with her internet. I think she's going to try to log back in. Okay, Rich, you're next up. So, talk to us, Rich. Why poetry? Because as many people know, you're not going to make a great deal of money from being a poet.
No, that's
You know,
clear.
unfortunately, you know, that is the truth. So what is it about poetry or just creative writing in general that attracts you, and if you believe others should, why you believe others should get into poetry or be more involved, the importance of it?
Well, if you had asked me that um, even a year ago or 2 years ago, I might have had a different answer for you. But I will tell you that specifically in the last 2 3 weeks, we've seen the biggest argument I think for poetry that you can possibly have, which is the reintroducing of meaning to words, right? Because we live in a country that uses words to bomb people, to have drones patrolling our cities, and to make us swallow it, and just to go along with it. When you name something specifically, when you name something with intention, as good poetry often does, you give meaning back to words, and you kind of put the flesh back on the skeleton, so to speak. And that to me is what poetry is all about. It's about stretching the language, and it's about finding the beauty in it, but it's also about um, being really intentional with your message. And that you can apply that to any genre, but for me it's specific to poetry because you have this really small window, right? And you have a little bit of room to do it, and sometimes it's on a stage, and sometimes it's on a page. But a poem is your one, it's your chance to make a case for something, and if you're going to speak clearly, um, I mean, there's your chance to do it. And this time in history, we got to speak clearly. We got to say no to the stuff that we're seeing.
That brings up a point that I want to get to later and speak on and ask everyone's opinion on, is that it seems like in the community that poet and activist are sort of synonymous titles. Now I'm going to ask everyone's opinion on that and see how you guys feel, but that's later on. And now True is back. You can hear us, True?
I can. I can.
Okay, awesome. So, what we're doing now is speaking basically why you got into poetry and creative writing. Why is it important to you? Do you feel it's important to the world, especially considering that poetry truly doesn't pay the bills? So, yeah. So I know it's a broad question, but you can get as specific and as deep as you want. Why poetry?
Well, I think that I've always been a writer. I think there was a time when we used to say, poetry gives you, 3 to 5 minutes to say whatever the fuck you want, and everyone has to listen. But I think that as you're in this genre for longer, you realize that those 3 to 5 minutes open a window for you to really send a message out there. And I think that's it's very similar as to what Rich was saying. It becomes your intent to get certain messages, things that are near and dear to your heart. Um, why poetry? I think that for me it's a passion, and that's not something that can just be put in a box and shoved into a corner to say like, okay, well, I'm only going to write, this way or about these things. I don't want to get into like the whole activism thing because you were talking about doing that later, but you know we are in essence modern day griots. We are the storytellers. We are the ones that are really preserving our cultures through these words. And no one can tell our stories but us. You know, if we allow people to tell our stories, we're going to get things that are very similar to what's in the history books today, which is just really a bunch of biased nonsense for the most part. Um, so we are, in essence, poets and streetcasters, and we're really the ones telling the people what is going on. You know, and when you have something now as prevalent as the internet that allows these words to be circled around the world, you know, we now have we have a bigger job to do. And it's not just about 3 to 5 minutes on a stage. You know, the world has now become our platform. So now it becomes a question of what are you going to do with it? And that's why I chose poetry, because I can paint, I can write and keep it in a notebook, but then what legacy am I really creating? What am I really showing my ancestors that I'm doing with the work that they put in for me to be here today? You know, it's just so much bigger than what it used to be.
I think that's a key word. That again, it's another thing I want to touch on a little later on. After this is legacy. You mentioned legacy, and I've listened to a lot of interviews from my favorite authors, and they always talk about, you know, their legacy. What are they going to leave behind? How are people going to remember them? Even people who've written like sci-fi. It doesn't necessarily have to be nonfiction, but that's something that a lot of authors I'm seeing who are touching on. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I definitely want to get to that later as well. And last but not least, Gabriel. Gabriel, now I know you do more than poetry, that you've done other writing and acting, so you can answer this from a poetry term, or you could just answer this from a creative writing term. Why poetry? Why organize words and share it with the world?
Well, my mother, she raised me without a television, so words have always been a part of my life. She made us remember Shakespearean sonnets when we were little kids. But during my undergrad, I focused more on creative nonfiction, but I was at a book launch of my teacher and poet, Martin Harrison, who just passed away. And another poet, an Australian poet, Robert Adamson, was there, and he said, "Do you write poetry?" And I said, "I have outbursts." So I guess what Rich was saying, it's like a very short, concise way to express yourself when you're, you know, you've got passion and, I don't know, in a concise, effective manner, whereas in fiction you have more time. And then I guess poetry takes the economic element out of it, so the community, like when I studied fiction at the New School, a lot of my friends were poets because we go to all those events together, we see each other, we drink together, we go to readings like every night. Whereas the fiction community, whilst I have lots of friends who write fiction, it's more of a secluded practice.
Mm-hmm.
And then why poetry? I guess I can't help but think abstractly. You know, I turn concrete things into abstractions all the time. It's just the way my brain's wired.
Now, I hear an accent on you. What's the accent? Where is the accent from?
I was born in Sydney, but I grew up in the Middle East and Asia, so it's really crazy. It changes quite a lot. And I've been in the Lower East Side for 5 years now. I'm a gypsy.
So you were born in Sydney, Australia, and where did you say you grew up?
In Singapore and Dubai.
Oh wow. Okay, so yeah, that is well traveled. Nice, nice.
Dubai is like the Bronx. It's just, you know, less Bronxy.
Say it again, Rich. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Dubai is kind of like the Bronx. It's just a little less Bronx.
I don't know. I think Dubai I think it got a little more money than the Bronx. I could be wrong.
Un poquito más.
I think it got a little bit more of the money. So okay, so now that we more or less have a little bit of an understanding of where you guys are from, I do want to. The next thing I want to get into is something that True had touched upon, was legacy in terms of writing. You know, I think all writers have this kind of fantasy or dream that their writing is going to live forever. You know, I think we all, even if we don't want to necessarily write like Shakespeare, maybe we do, but the fact that like hundreds of years after this man is gone, we're still dissecting his work. So why, what is it about legacy that's so intriguing? Because at the end of the day, we're not going to be around to enjoy it. You know, it seems like the work of an artist becomes more expensive after they die. All of a sudden, everyone wants to celebrate their work. Like most artists, most of their work gets celebrated after they're gone. So when we're all gone, you know, why is that something of interest of us in terms of investing in something that we may not personally get to enjoy the benefit of? And anyone could jump in. I guess we could start with True, because she had brought it up.
Okay. Well, I think that when you talk about legacy, it's not a monetary issue anymore.
What's intriguing about it? Because yeah, it's not a monetary.
I think that for me, what's intriguing, you know, I have a daughter, and she needs to know that, you know, you can chase your passion, and maybe, you know, the checks aren't going to have as many zeros as you want on it, you know, but the impact that you can make on this world, you know, goes beyond the grasp of what money is. You know, like poetry really does change lives. You know, the messages that we send to people changes lives and perspectives and opens doors that had previously been closed for generations. Um, I
So
don't.
what opened your eyes or changed? You talk about like poetry changes lives. So
I mean, personally, poetry has changed my life immensely. You know, I tell people all the time, like, I really think that if it wasn't for poetry, I'd probably be dead. You know, I was.
that's a serious statement. That's a heavy
It,
statement. Can
it
you
is
explain it a little?
a statement. You know, I grew up a street kid, you know, by choice. I had wonderful parents, but, you know, I just loved running the streets. I grew up very angry and closed. I always felt like I had something to prove to people. Um, you know, I knew I was intelligent, but intelligence isn't celebrated in my neighborhood. Um,
Yeah.
but these words were, you know, and even though people, you know, I think when I first started, everybody thought that I was going to be a rapper, which, you know, really wasn't going to happen. But, you know, I remember taking the stage and getting that adrenaline high, you know, that previously I only got, you know, doing stupid stuff in the street. And, you know, I was able to actually just be myself and tell these stories, and I no longer had anything to prove, you know. And I think as I became more serious with my work, and as I had more women coming to me telling me that I was telling their stories, I realized how serious this was, and how much value my life actually had, because by going up there, I was giving voices to women who would never dare tell these stories. You know, women who were afraid of being attacked or found out, you know, by people that had abused them, and things of that sort. And, you know, I don't say it in jest that poetry saved my life. You know,
Yeah.
it's factual, because I was angry and I was able to turn that anger into poetry. So instead of running into the street, you know, and getting myself into some trouble because I needed to blow off steam, I was able to just sit in my room with a pen and a pad and get it all out. Um, and that's part of, you know, I think the legacy that's being created by poetry is, you know, forming these words out of this anger and this loss and this hopelessness that I was feeling, you know, and actually being able to pass that down to someone else who maybe doesn't have someone that they can talk to, who doesn't feel like they can put these words together, or really just feels like no one cares about what they're going through, you know. And to look up and see someone telling those stories, it really does make you pause. For me, I'll say I remember watching Chris Slaughter go up there, street jazz and ghetto blues, and telling stories about the hood that I came from, and being like, wow, I can write like that. I can tell these stories. Like, you know, people want to know about the drug dealers and the prostitutes, and really give these voices and these stories to people. And it's going to make a difference. Like, people are going to pay me to do this. You know, and I'm still to this day, you know, words. I bug out sometimes when I'm like, what? You know, you come across a lawyer, you know, who you feel would never, ever vibe with what I do, and they're like, oh my God, that was my story. And it gives you hope because you realize that, you know, we make it. You know, you can come from the bottom and make it. And it's not just about surviving, because surviving means you clung onto a log and you made it somehow. You know, we're warriors. Like we made it through this. We pushed until we got here. And you know, that's the legacy that we're creating. That's the legacy I'm creating for my daughter, for her to be able to read these poems and be like, wow, my mother did this and she got through this and I can do this too. You know, these are the stories that I pray that my grandchildren will come across my book like, oh, shoot, grandma wrote this, and go through it, you know, and be like, oh, wow, she did this and she made it through this, and look, and we're all here. You know, that's the legacy that I want to create. And you know what? If that turns into a legacy that 100 years from now, there's 3 million people reading these books, I'll take it. I'll take it because, I mean, what's greater than that? I don't need to be celebrated here. You know, I have family and I have people that love me. I don't need 3 million people celebrating me right now. But if I can change the world and not even be present, I mean, fuck
You're
million.
immortal.
Yeah,
You're
like,
immortal.
you know, keep your check. Keep your check. You know, I did something greater than that.
Yes, and I'm glad that you went into depth about that you're not just saying poetry saved your life. I've heard a lot of people say that, and I think it I don't know how many of them are being fully honest, so they're just saying that because that sounds like the cool thing to say. So I'm glad you went into depth about it so that people can understand you know what you mean by that. So I also want to let everyone know that if someone's talking and if you have a question that you could just jump in and ask. So if there's something that True said that you wanted to ask a question, you could just jump in. Again, we're all adults. No one has to wait for me. So I'm gonna be a gentleman and I'm gonna skip Rich and I'm gonna let the ladies go first again, and I'll come back to you, Rich.
And
so
they say chivalry is dead.
That's all right. I got my coffee with my snowman. We chilling. We good.
So, Gabriel, for you, when you think about what kind of a legacy you would like to leave behind as an artist, what do you think about, or is it important to you, or is it not important to you?
It's an interesting question. I always wonder why poets have pseudonyms or aliases, because I'm like, oh, like I haven't changed my name. Like, I'm like, oh, my name now.
Well, Villar is actually an alias. It's all good. Like, you know, it's not my real name.
No, legacy. I'd say legacy is more in terms of what True was saying. In terms of I work in different communities, such as like I taught poetry. I used to teach poetry in the waiting room of parolees in the Bronx, and I would teach the guys their sonnets, or I work with kids in Brooklyn, or you know, young girls, and I really love teaching people sonnets, and anyone can write a sonnet, especially people with a hip-hop background, because it's the beats and the rhyme. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's more so that skill and the sense of empowerment of being able to express yourself that comes with that. Or, I don't know, just finishing something in a form is fun. I don't know about my own personal legacy. I think reading poets like Rilke or poets from the past, that you know, you can read it and, like True said, they help you through a moment that I'm going through now, but you know, they lived a long time before me, so it is important, the legacy they left behind.
So do you think about that? Do you hope one day that maybe you could leave something behind?
I don't think I could ever write if I thought like that. I don't even think I think about tomorrow too much. Like when I create, I vomit up things. I'm very creatively impulsive. Always, it would stump me. I can't overthink. I can't even, you know, I couldn't think about that.
So you're just kind of very much in the moment when you create your art.
All my moleskins, like people finding my moleskins if I died, like who would get all my journals, and like I write fiction, and my mother might think it's real. I don't know. They're not actually diaries.
Nice. Yeah. Now that you said that, I'm starting to think about, man, what have I written, or what's on my computer that my mother may find?
Right.
Well, that's what they do when poets die. They go through our logs, find things.
Yeah, no, they do.
Kafka wanted his manuscript burned, and his best friend in the execution of his will didn't do it. He published it. So.
And who was it? I heard the story, but I didn't hear the name.
Kafka, the writer who wrote Metamorphosis, but his other book, I'm not sure which one it was, but after he had in his will that his best friend and executor of his will should burn the book, and then his best friend didn't. But it's like a no-win situation. Like, if my best friend burned the book, I'd be like, didn't you like the book? But then if they published it, they also betrayed you.
Okay. Yeah, say it again. Say it again.
Say what again? What should I repeat?
The last sentence you said, I think it cut off.
I was just saying it's a tough situation. It's a no-win. I mean, if Kafka's best friend burnt the book, Kafka, well, I don't know. If my best friend burnt my book instead of publishing it, even though I asked them not to, it would be, didn't you think it was a good book? But if they publish it, they've betrayed you. So, I don't know. The legacies of writers is complicated, I suppose.
Very, yeah. I think everyone looks at it a little differently, and in the situation like what you brought up, that's all. So far, I'm like when we're talking about the way True brought up legacy, the way you've brought up legacy, the different sides of it. All right, Mr. Rich Villar, it is your turn. So when you think about poetry and you think about the legacy that others have left behind, because for those who don't know Rich is huge into the legacy of writers, and just hang out with him for 5 minutes and he's going to start discussing the legacy of writers. Walk with him in the Lower East Side, he's going to point out apartments and all these little tidbits. So legacy, Mr. Rich Villar, yours and the general sense of it for a writer, your thoughts.
No, there's so much to touch on. When I was in the middle of my divorce, I turned to a book called Refusing Heaven by Jack Gilbert. And I survived it as a result. Because Jack Gilbert had this way of not detaching from the sadness and depression, not separating himself from it, but finding a solitary voice, a voice of solitude that helped him get through this grief. Okay. There's a town in Florida called Eatonville. It is the hometown of Zora Neale Hurston, and it is one of the last. I won't say one of the last, but it is a historically African American town in the tradition of like Rosewood, those towns that were burned and sent off the map for various reasons. Eatonville, Florida, at various points in its history, has been targeted by the state of Florida to put a highway. They can't do that because Zora Neale Hurston wrote Their Eyes Are Watching Us. It is their one argument for staying here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is the thing that keeps them from being erased. So there's that. We are living in a moment when you're talking about Ferguson, you're talking about Eric Garner, when you're talking about the police brutality that's going on nationwide. You're talking about the legacy of 400 years of oppression, slavery, and the things that we have not dealt with as a nation. And the only way that we're going to be able to educate people is to remind them that there is this rich literature that was left behind, and histories that were left behind. And Frederick Douglass, all the way through the writings that we have up to the present day, and the people that speak up to the present day, whose ancestral memory stretches back. And that to me is three small examples, I think, of what poetry can do, and what literature does for a culture. More than just personal expression, it's about preserving the human experience. It's about preserving the memory, our collective memory. Absolutely. Whether we're talking about Latinos on the Lower East Side, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, whoever, whether we're talking about people who are going through the everyday human experience and experiencing loss and grief, whether you're talking about the literal physical act of putting something on the planet that then prevents you from complete erasure. That's what literature does. It makes the invisible visible, and it humanizes. It gives us a window into common human experience. It gives us the ability to look at each other not as black and white, or Latino, or Asian, or New Yorican, or Neo-Cuban, or Afro-Cuban, or this movement or that movement, but as human beings. If you can be on the Lower East Side in the 1970s, and you can write in the middle of this chaos that is going on, and create something that is beautiful in 2014, then you can have a dialogue with the poets who were writing stuff in Sumeria in 4000 BC or whenever. That conversation is powerful, and that link is powerful. You're part of a continuum. Go ahead.
I learned about that from Bimbo Rivas. I live in the Lower East Side. I've been here 5 years. I grew up around the world, as I said, and I've never felt so at home as I do in the Lower East Side. And Bimbo Rivas's poem, where he apparently coined the term Loisada, is like the Lower East Side. Is
exactly.
how I learned the history of the neighborhood that I love.
And how powerful is that a New Yorican writer, who is born and lived and died in a particular era, who has nothing to do with Sydney, Australia, is able to connect with two cultures.
Right.
And is able to create a conversation between two people that had no other way of being connected. That's the legacy that I certainly strive for. My first book was all about love and feelings, and someday somebody will pick that up and say, oh, that was an interesting time in his life. The next book will be more about the history of relations between the United States, Cuba, and Puerto Rico, and they'll say, oh, this is an interesting history book. And then I can take it to any direction I want. But that's just me. Imagine if all of us could do that. What kind of history we could weave together. And not just that, but the kind of history that kind of goes against all of this BS claptrap that we see. I mean, I got CNN on in my room here. I'm looking at all these people trying to interpret for me what is going on in the with this stuff that's going on in Cuba and between the United States and Cuba. I got this dude trying to explain to me what the hell is going on, and I'm like, my dude, you don't have to explain nothing, man. I lived it, and I can testify to it better than he can. And he's got multiple PhDs. I'm sure he's very well versed and can read every book there is. I have the legacy sitting in my living room.
Right.
His name is Gus. He's 80. You know what I mean? I have just as much to say as he does.
I've been to Cuba. I'm not American. I'm allowed to go there.
You're allowed to what?
Well, because I don't have an American passport. And in your American passport, it says you're not allowed to go to Cuba, right? Or you'll be fined $100,000.
As of today, that is no longer the case.
Yeah, that's no longer the case.
I don't have a TV. I live in a bubble.
Oh, it's okay. It is totally okay to live in a bubble.
That's something new. That's something that came out today. But yeah, okay. So the next thing that I want to bring on, that I want to talk about, because I mean we could really flesh this out. What I'm hoping is that like people who are watching this are going to carry on this conversation, whether they agree or disagree with us, but they carry on this conversation because it's an interesting conversation. Also, I want to shout out because I'm seeing that Yolanda, Tanisha, and Eileen are active in the comment section, so of course I got to shout them out. They keep asking, they keep mentioning things that you guys are mentioning, and one of the things they wanted to ask, one of the questions I've asked is for me to repeat again who's on the stream with me. So first we have, and I'm going to try to bring you guys to the big screen, is This Is True. True's a poet, performer. She also has Climbing Ivy, a nonprofit, which I definitely want to save some time to. And I hope that you guys may have on you a short poem that maybe you could read and share with us. So that's True. And now I'm going to bring up to the screen Mr. Rich Villar, a published poet. And Rich, actually, I believe he won an award before his book even came out, which is crazy. I mean, who does that? You know who does that? Rich Villar does that. So this is Rich Villar. And last but not least, we have representing the globe, representing Singapore, Sydney, Australia, Dubai, and the Lower East Side. We have Gabriel Don, who's a writer, an actor, and a musician, you said, correct?
Yeah, I'm a singer, a bad guitar player.
Okay, awesome. Oh, play instrument too. Oh, great. That's awesome. I hate you for that. I can't do that, so I'm gonna hate you for that. So, so next thing I wanted to speak about, especially because of the current climate of the country, the world, but we're in specifically the country right now. At least within the poetry scene within New York, the performance poetry scene within New York, there seems to be like this. I was saying this. It's as artists and activists are almost synonymous. So I wanted to hear what everyone's take on that was, considering, you know, all the writers that came before us. Can you be a poet and not be an activist? Is that okay? Or are you selling out? Are you not doing right by the craft? Or is it just hype that a poet has to be an activist? So I guess we'll start this time with Gabriel, because we haven't started with Gabriel yet. So what is your take in terms of activism and poetry or creative writing? Do they have to be linked, or do they not have to be linked? Does it get messy when they get linked? What are your thoughts?
To me, in everything I do, whether it be painting, music, poetry, whatever I do, my craft is indistinguishable from my activism. The through line and like every creative impulse I have would be, you know, either I grew up around the world, so I have a very different perspective on race, and I was raised at a TV, so I haven't been socialized in the same way. So I don't know. I have activism, whether it be gender or race or cultural imperialism. Like in poetry, every poem has some sort of underlying activism, and there's some great poets out there like Ibrahim Sadiq. You know, lots of poets in the community in New York that are doing great things in terms of activism and poetry.
So, would you think lesser of an artist if they weren't using their work for activism?
Absolutely.
Of any sorts?
I wouldn't judge anyone's creative impulse. You know, everyone doesn't have a social conscience, and if they, like, you know, what if it, like, I don't know too much about politics, but like, you know, George Bush, you know, he does a painting. I don't think that George Bush should not be allowed to do a painting just because I don't agree with his politics. Do you know what I mean? Or I don't know. Like, I think any creative impulse is a one.
George Bush for doing a painting.
well, you're next, Rich, so you can get to that. But I love that, you know, George Bush and activism. Yeah, awesome.
Well, that's a very different point of view to me, but well, so you're saying like I'm not quite sure I understand. So someone who's just writing a poem about a flower and that flower doesn't represent, you know, flower power. What exactly do you mean? Like a poem that doesn't have a social message underneath it?
Yeah, it's because like just what I've seen, and I'm not saying I have a problem with it. Just speaking fact, what I've seen is that it seems as if poetry, or it seems as if people believe, or there's a lot of people who believe that like poetry and activism have to be together, you know. And then I know that there's some people, I've heard people comment or come out and they see things like, you know, why can't they just do a poem or do a song? Why does it have to have a message? That's something I heard a great deal of with concerning the Lupe fiasco the last year or two. I've heard some of his fans say, you know, I want him to quit the politics and the social stuff. I just want to hear a good song. And then there's some people who think that, you know, a piece of art should not be created unless it is being driven through activism or some kind of social change or social message. So
I think the poetry, though, poetry is dissemination. Do you know what I mean? So you could have one line, and you have that heard by a feminist group, you have that heard by a different group. Everyone's going to interpret that line differently, and that's the beautiful thing about abstraction and about poetry. So I don't think I could ever hear or view a poem without, you know, interpreting it in my own fashion. Do you know what I mean? Even if it, like, I'm sure I would put gender politics into it, or I would put something, or some type of personal meaning into whatever I'm hearing or seeing.
yeah, Mr. Rich Villar, what is your take on it? Also, Queen got into the comment section. It's like, give me a shout out, so I'm giving her a shout out. What's up, Queen? She's looking in.
Hi,
So,
sister.
yes, that's true, sister, who is a huge supporter. She's listening in and watching. So, Mr. Rich Villar, your turn in terms of activism and artistry. Do they have to be together? Should they be separate? What is your?
I'm reading the comment section here. DZ Mom says true artists and activists campaign for some kind of social change. They are synonymous. It is inevitable. Keyword is true. Quotes. True artists and activists, right? So that's you know, that's one opinion. I have to say, even Juan Antonio Correger wrote a book of love poems. That's true too. Here's the thing, and I think what they're saying kind of touches on the same sort of stuff. You got someone like me, and someone like True, and someone like Gabriel, who all identify themselves as political people, not political poets. Just living in this society, you are political. When you're brown, when you're Puerto Rican, when you are a woman, hello, Cosby. When you are anything in this country that is outside of the dominant culture, you're already political. And anything that you do, any artistic contribution you have is going to be interpreted on some level as an activist impulse. You can write a poem about a tree and be a black poet writing about a tree. And
Charles Simic has a poem about a fork. I want people to take a look at it after this broadcast to look it up. He's got a poem about a fork, and the poem, I feel, is basically just about him trying to say, I'm gonna look at the world differently, even the mundane things, and he describes the fork in a way I've never heard before. But I want people to go read that on their own. I'm sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead, Rich. Continue.
Wallace Stevens has a poem about a jar called "Anecdote of the Jar," and all it is about a jar in a forest. You could say, oh, well, that's just about a jar in a forest. If you extrapolate it, you can say, no, this is about modernity in the middle of nature. You can write that poem in the South Bronx. If you go out to the Bronx River, 174th Street Bridge, and you see all these glass bottles in the trees, this is modernity imposing itself on nature, and it is done for a specific purpose. Those trees are in the bottles to represent the dead, and that's a tradition that is in that particular neighborhood. You know, so, and that's a very, that's not a narrative you're going to hear in every poem, right? It's because poetry, I feel, in maybe in the last 100 years or so, has been sort of a domain for the dominant culture, white people, I guess you could say. And the narratives that have come out of it, we have this, the idea that something can't represent something is a very privileged position. It's the idea that, we can make everything universal. Listen, until equality is truly here, there is no universal. There is only your perspective. And when you give a perspective, and you are an other person in
Rich,
no matter what you say.
Rich, can you take it back a couple of lines? The audio started to go out.
Oh, I was saying that
When you are, that's what you were saying. When you
when
are,
you are a politicized person in this country, in this environment, everything you say is political, and it doesn't matter if you write about a belief. You're writing about a belief from your othered perspective, from your othered body, and I don't think you can help it. You know, you might be the type that says, oh, I don't write political poems. I don't believe in being a political person in my poetry. I think I can do whatever. Good. They're still going to ask you to put your poems in the Latino anthology, and they're still going to ask you to, rep it in some way. So either you can, take a hands-off approach to it, or you can embrace it. I choose to embrace it.
cool. And definitely not least, but last in this for this particular question. So true. Especially within this, I'd like, if you don't mind, like you to mention, include stuff about the Climate Ivy project. So you with artistry and activism and where they lie, do they have to cross? Should they not cross? Your thoughts?
Well, I think that we have to watch how we actually define activism.
I'm glad you said that.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Because I think that, a poet can, or an artist in general can, write a political piece or paint a political painting. It doesn't make them an activist. It just means that they have an opinion. An activist is someone who's actually out there campaigning to make a social change, for a cause that, resonates with them in some way. I think that line has become so blurred in the community. People think that because you write 10 poems about, fuck the police, you're an activist, but you're home chilling, writing poems, and you're not on the front lines. You're not out there bringing it out to the people. You're not making any serious changes other than filling up your notebook. Now, does that poem have the ability to spark someone else to say, I'm going to go out there and make a change? Absolutely. It can absolutely be a catalyst for change. But that doesn't make you an activist. For example, I can say with myself, I think that the first part of my, poetry career, I always spoke about women and women empowerment in some form, but I was only doing poetry. I wasn't really out there campaigning for these women. I was just telling their stories. To touch on Climbing Ivy, the entire purpose of creating Climbing Ivy was because I realized that, words can only do but so much. Words can allow these women to relate and to maybe feel more comfortable with who they are and what they've been through, and understanding that their circumstances don't define them. But I'm not really changing the landscape in any way. Through the Climate Ivy Project, with a mentoring program for young girls worldwide, I'm able to actually start enacting those changes. I'm able to set these young girls up with women who share their stories and bring about a change to open their eyes to the world and really set up a global community of women empowering women. I can be comfortable now with being called an activist because I'm out there and I'm campaigning for these women. I'm putting myself on their line, my name, my word, my money, my time, for these women to be able to move ahead in the world. I wasn't doing that before. It's really easy to step on a soapbox and demand changes with a mic in your face, with applause behind what you're doing and a nice punchline.
It's social totally media different. Post.
Right, and social media posts and Facebook and Instagram.
Facebook activism.
Oh wait, True, hold on. I hit the wrong button. I think she got muted. Hold on, True.
They cut her mic. They cut
her mic. I don't know. Wait a second.
Don't please.
Wait, I think True. I think you hit something on your end with that. Can you check? to see if you hit the mute
She
button
got
on your end?
angry and banged on the microphone.
Yo, it got too real. The
It
Illuminati,
got
that's
too
what it
real.
is.
The
The
Illuminati, yeah.
Illuminati hacked in
That's
because
it.
it started to get
The
too real.
NSA cut her off. It was the NSA, son.
Yo, that's what it was. Yeah, I think it's on your end. I'm
Homeland Security coming for true.
Yo, I'm trying to sit here and fix and
There she goes.
oh, we lost her. She's probably gonna jump back in. I think it was on her
Where's
end.
Latanya? I thought Latanya was coming.
Yeah, I think because Latanya, Latanya Devon, she's the founder of the full. I think it's called the Full Ensemble Circle or the Full Write-In Circle. Damn. Oh, True is back. So
Okay.
the website to Latanya Devon is in the the is on the YouTube page in the description, so you're gonna be able to link to get her link there. She was supposed to join us. I think that she was on the move or that she couldn't get to a computer, and she tried to from her phone. The Full Circle Ensemble. I got the name right. Excuse me, I'm dyslexic. Like I really am. People think I say it as a joke, but I'm a little dyslexic. So the Full Writing in Circle. I am going to try to get her on another time. She was supposed to join. And True is back. We can hear her. True, please finish up your thought.
Well, like I said, I want to be very clear with poets as far as poets being activists. I think that there's a huge difference between political and being an activist, and we need to be very responsible how we throw around those titles. You know, I don't care how many poems you have about politics and changing the world. If you're not out there getting dirty to make it happen, you just have an opinion and a mic. You know, and that's pretty much it.
I like I like uh, what you said there about how you know that it's just your opinion. It's not necessarily activism,
Right.
and that's something too. Like I have a serious title with I have a serious issue with the title, like activist. You know, and I've done things for the community and whatnot, but I've always, I don't want to say always, but of late I've been real hesitant to say I'm an activist, because when I think about it, I think, you know, activist is someone who's doing this all the time, and they're putting, like you said, their money and their mouth on the line, and I don't know if I necessarily do that. And I also believe when you call yourself an activist, that now you're holding yourself to a higher bar. You know, so if I'm doing right in my community, but I'm not trying to say, you know, because to say you're an activist is the cool thing today. You know, that's why I say, oh, the cool kids are protesting, they're activists.
Yeah,
but I always
then
wonder, like,
call it what it is, though. Call yourself what you are. If you're an educator, be that.
yes,
You know, if you're a performer, be that. You know,
I gotta take some issue with that though, because the thing that I do consider myself an activist, and you're not always going to find me at the protest. You know, you're not always going to find me necessarily getting rough and dirty with it. But my idea of rough and dirty is exactly that sometimes, because, you know, an educator like me, okay, I didn't go, you know, full board to school, at least not yet. I didn't get the MFA, I didn't get the PhD, I don't teach college students, but what I do is I go, you know, I do the stuff in the community as much as I can. It's not all the time, but, you know, my idea of being an activist, you know, especially when you know, you can still be an activist in the middle of Kansas and you have an opinion and you say it.
absolutely.
And especially in the era of social media, when you can get your opinion out to millions of people at a time, it's more about being a thought leader, right? And you can change the world with your thoughts.
a public intellectual.
A public intellectual, yes, but the where the work comes in is like this. You can be Karl Marx, okay? You can be the person that has that big idea that changes the planet. But, you know, Karl Marx had a publisher, and that required him to get his ass out there and, you know, put the thing in a form that someone will want to put in a book and get it out, and you know, make the big public assertions, but, you know, it ain't going to do you any good if you have these big opinions and then put them on Facebook.
Right.
That's the thing that I got a problem with, and that's, you know, and I'm guilty of it too. The thing is, if you got these big ideas, man, get your ass involved with some kind of a blog, get your ass involved with some sort of community group, get your ass on social media, and get your message out. And be a thought leader, be a public intellectual if you know how and you can, and you have a message that is unique. I do believe that there are plenty of people out there that are parroting other people and are really good at you know, cracking open one book and saying, "Ooh, I read Paulo Freire," and then you can, you know, and then you can kind of, you know, do what Paulo did or repeat what Paulo said, and that's the only thing you do. But when you have a, you know, original opinions about things, you know, when you when you when you take the mind and you make it an active act of thinking about something and making it into something new, that's, you know, that's an activist urge too. It may not be necessarily kicking the doors down, but you know what? Someone who reads you might want to kick the door down.
Right.
You know?
I think saying to put it on the page is problematic in terms of activism and poetry, because I think historically a lot of people have been disempowered because the spoken word or history of oral storytelling has disempowered a lot of indigenous people around the world. So I think it's very problematic in terms of activism to say put it on the page. Not that I don't tell a lot of my students to write down a poem, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I also think that the, you know, the tools for publishing are much more readily available than they were, you know, when Gutenberg invented the movable type press. And I think that, you know, but that also speaks to issues of access and, you know, of, you know, just having basic internet access to do that, and I understand that too. But there are so many different, you're right, there are so many different ways to get that message out there, be it the page and being readily available, you know, putting something into, you know, maybe like a theater of the oppressed kind of thing, where you can get out in the street and you can actually do this, you know, these theater pieces that are public and that are free and that are accessible to everyone. Storytelling that you can get, you know, you can get the word out there. All of these different ways to, you know, to do it. That's certainly true. Certainly true.
So we could go on and on about this topic. I don't know if you guys realized the hour's already gone by, and I wanted to try to cap it at an hour. So we're gonna go a little bit over, because what I would really like to do, as well as give you guys an opportunity to maybe share a poem that you've written. So, not an epic poem, something not too long, but if you've got something that's within like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, I want you to share it. And also, I'd like for you guys to share whatever it is that you're working on now, or whatever projects you have coming up, or something that you would like people to know about. So we will start with the ladies again, and Gabriel, Don. Do you have?
Because I gotta find something to read.
Okay. do you have something to share with us, and also where can people find more information on you?
I have a couple of publications coming out. I've been translated into Spanish for the first time, which is very excited, for a Peruvian online magazine. It's called Transutiaros. So I have a couple of poems coming up on that. I have a poem coming out in Quiet Lunch, which I think is released next month. And a short story in Gargoyle, 62, next year. A poem to share. Oh, projects I'm working on. Oh, by the way, advocate of words, I realized all the words you mentioned, progress, process, and projects, all have the word pro in it, which made me very excited.
Nice.
Because I'm a pro. That's it. I'm a pro.
I'm going to write a poem with that later. I'm working on, I've got a couple of projects going. I'm interviewing a lot of women. I just interviewed several in the Middle East, but I've interviewed loads in America and lots in Australia too, women on being a woman and a writer. So that's an ongoing project. I'm in the process of editing and still speaking to people. I'm working on my collection of short stories, and I'm trying to pull together a collection of poems. I kind of just throw poetry all over the place, so I'm trying to put it all in one document. A poem to share. I'll share a short one. I like to mix images with poems. So if you look at my Facebook, this is, I think, was my profile picture. Lover, I am not your muse. I mused you. I used you. I chewed you up and spat you into this poem.
Nice. Nice.
All right.
And Miss Gabriel Don, she is on Facebook. Again, if you're watching this video on YouTube, in the description, which is below the video, you're going to see a link to her Facebook. And like she said, she's everywhere. She's in a few publications. So make sure you go and hit her up. and follow her. And again, because Mr. Rich Villar is such a true gentleman, we're going to let another lady go before him. And True, I hope True doesn't kill me for saying this, but I believe that True has a bunch of new work that she's going to be performing. It's not necessarily new work, but it's new to the stage that she's going to be doing at her feature this Friday at Babel in the Bronx. So, True, do you have a piece that you could share with us? And if you want to discuss about any further projects, information, where people can find you.
Well, right now, all of my time and energy is into the Climate Ivy project. We officially have our Art of Schools of Incorporation. We're working on our 501c3. So,
woo! Yeah.
So, you know, there are some projects coming up. I'm not ready to talk about them yet. But, you know, Climate Ivy, the book is still there. The Climate Ivy project is, by spring, we should be getting ready to really launch fully and get our first set of girls in September. So it's a really exciting time for me. And then the poems, right? Because I said I was going to stop doing the same old poems. So, right, and I've never read this before, right? So here we go.
New-ish, yeah, on the live stream.
On a live stream with me all
new.
in my phone. Okay. Dear girl, remember that your arrival was bloody. Your mother's screams were your birth song, that you drowned into life. This life ain't for the weak. Never let your knees buckle. Submission won't be your repertoire. Dear girl, they will lick away your sentiments, grind away your resolve, cast aside your emotions, but they'll never find your heart. These hearts, buried deep in memories, locked in mother's womb, guarded by childhood tears. Dear girl, march proudly into battle, because this ain't game they spit in. This be civil war. They'll use civility as a pawn. They'll call you pretty to disarm you. They'll throw love to harm you. Dear girl, never battle yourself for love. Don't watch the joy dim from your eyes. Why surrender your smile to arrive at their shore? Remember, your arrival here was bloody. These warriors screams your birth song. They must take you as you are.
Nice. Woo! That was True, giving us an exclusive. The YouTube live stream got an exclusive. That's what's up. Again, the link to I think I don't have the link to True in the description. I have the link to the Climate Ivy project page, but True's all part of it. And is there information on the Climate Ivy project page?
There is information. Our mission statement and such are on there, and the website will be launching shortly. So like the page, and you'll be up to date with everything that we're doing.
Awesome. And is there information to your to the book Climate Ivy?
Yes, there is.
Okay, awesome. I want to make sure that they get a chance to check that out as well. Awesome. We got an exclusive. I like this. Right now, we had the ladies go first, and their poems were not soft at all. They were like aggressive. You know, True was like, don't let them tell you that what you are. Remember where you are and what you're from. And then Gabriel was like, no, motherfucker, you the muse. I'm using you.
Spit you out.
I like it. No damsel in distress over here. We got warriors. I love it.
Right.
And last but not least, Mr. Rich Villar, do you have a piece to share with us? And also shout out to Capicu and La Sopa. And Rich was one of the teachers for this year. I think this is the second class that La Sopa has, and they too have a show on Friday that Rich has directed and worked with them. So Mr. Rich Villar, who has currently just come back to performing on stages because he had stuck to the page for a while, but a certain someone put together a show. That may not be a habit. You were awesome. I'm just saying you was awesome, Rich. So go ahead. Let everyone know where they can find you, if there are any projects you have coming up, and then please share a poem.
Well, tomorrow they can definitely find us at the New Eurekan Poets Cafe. Papo and George and Capicu folks put together this workshop called La Sopa. And Johnny Rose, who is the the young lady who is the organizer there, and my fellow co-facilitator, Keith Roach. We have been working with this group since September, and it has been one of the most rewarding experiences of of my career. I say that in all honesty, and it's been really awesome. This event tomorrow is based on an exercise that I gave them, which is
Oh wait, I
based
thought it
on.
was Friday.
It's this Friday. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
this Friday,
today,
not tomorrow.
yeah,
I'm
today's
skipping ahead.
Wednesday. So
I'm skipping
December
ahead.
19th,
I'm already into Thursday, bro.
2014.
I'm already into Thursday. But
Okay.
it is Friday. This Friday, we'll be at the Nuyo, and students will be reading, and they'll be reading poems that are based on a series of poems by Miguel Algarin, which are all poems that are Puerto Rican angel poems. And so that's why the show is called The Army of Lit Angels. And they'll be conjuring angels to you on the stage because my opinion is that they're all wizards. And that's what I say. We all wizards. We be wizards. So there you go. I will be I'll be in several places in the next couple of months. I'm still got the first book. I'm still carrying the momentum of that, and I'll be reciting with Keith Horton at his book party on the 24th. I'll be at Sisters Uptown Bookstore. I will be at the first event for the Canvas of Words tour, Wendy Angulo, Big was up, at the Bowery Poetry Club on January 25th. I'll be at the Loser Slam on the 16th of February in Red Bank, New Jersey. I'll be at the University of New Haven on April 1st. And in November, there will be the first Latino Poetry Festival in New York City, and we're going to be organizing that. Cindy and I. It's going to be an amazing thing.
I forgot. Oh, sorry. I forgot to invite you to my birthday party on the 27th of December. I'm having an open mic in the Lower East Side, so you guys should all come on Saturday, 27th of December, 7 p.m. at Left Field.
Make sure you send me the information so that I can put it out.
Sorry to interrupt. I'd love if you came.
Okay. Okay. So my poem is dedicated to my sister who passed away in 2006. This poem is called Headstones. Pop is reading Headstones. Catechism rises in him from somewhere long buried. The litany of saints inside his cheek. Jose Medina, Jorge Antonio Gonzalez, Marisol Vélez. A black slab adorned with the Dominican flag says, Angel Luis Gutierrez, 1987 to 2006, 19 years old. Something says to mark this. My father's exhale is 500 years. We have come to mark my sister's death, Lily's white planter tulip bulb. 10 smooth stones in a circle, we stand on freshly turned earth, reciting the names of boys and girls who should be home, right now, tasting soup, eyes closing at the sudden sun, or remembering last night's running and not running, making a mess. 3 children running in a cemetery. We leave stones to mark our presence. A groundskeeper waits to clear them away.
I can't scream whoa or anything. That's heavy. I didn't know that your sister had passed away at 19.
Oh no. She didn't pass away at 19. No, she passed away relatively young too. And the thing that struck me is that in this part of the cemetery, first of all, it was all Latinos, and they all had died under the age of 50, and I had to mark that. So that's the poem.
Wow.
Not to end on a downer, but there you go.
No. You know what's funny? It's what we didn't mention earlier with this poem. I thought we talked about, like, does poetry have to be necessarily like a form of activism? And I don't know how you meant the poem, but I took the poem as something dear and close to the family, and just not being around loved ones. And I don't know if I would put that in activism, but I personally would have put that in a quote unquote activism type thing. But that's still a great poem, and I think it's still that anyone who has gone through anything similar, anything close, just even relatively close within the vicinity, you know, it can feel that. 'Cause there's some aspects of your poem that, I mean, I'm thinking even about like how grandparents of mine who have died at the age of 80, 85, how even today I still feel like that line said they should be home. You know, I think about that, and I think about people I know that have died that are very young. You know, they should be home, and their eyes closing suddenly when they see the sun, stuff like that. So, no, it is heavy, but it totally adds to things that we've been speaking about this whole time. So I thank you. And I want to thank the three of you because, you know, like I told you, it's the first time I ever tried to host a webcast, a live stream. So we did it.
I think it
went
went pretty
through.
well, man. I think
Everyone,
it went well.
yes, everyone heard. We had people commenting, and I thank you. I know I told you guys only an hour. We're already up to an hour and 10 minutes. So I thank you so much for your time, and this is going to be recorded, and it's like automatically uploaded to YouTube once we're done with it, so you guys can go back and read it over. So I want to thank everyone who checked it out. I want to thank everyone who is going to check out the recording that may not have been able to join us for the live stream. I'm definitely going to be doing this more come next year. I wanted to try this out. I hope the three of you enjoyed yourself enough that when I say, hey, would you like to come on again, I'll be able to sneak you guys on.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah. I'd love to.
Absolutely.
Awesome, awesome. So again, thank you, everyone. Once again, we were joined by Gabriel Don. Her information is in the description below this video. Mr. Rich Villar, his description is below this. His information is in the description below this video, and the same for True. These are artists who are active in the community, are constantly growing, and who have knowledge to share. So I hope that after you watch this, you guys take the time to reach out to them as well, subscribe to them, follow them, see what they're up to, interact with them, and that's it. I hope everyone enjoys their holidays. I may not be doing something like this again until after the new year, so happy new year to everyone, and hopefully
as my grandmother would have said, Happy New Year.
So Gabriel, Rich, True, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Yes, indeed.
Awesome. And we'll talk to you guys later. Enjoy your night. Peace.
Good night.
Later.